What's going on, guys? Welcome back. So something I want to do today is actually not going to be a gold guide. It's going to be for players who, are looking for other content to do, whether it be gearing up alts, or if you're late into the Battle for Azeroth N'Zoth expansion, you're just trying to catch up on the gear mechanics. So today we're going to be doing a 5-mask, a Horrific Vision. We're going to kind of take it slow. Some of the things we're going to start with are actually going to be what you're going to have to do before you can get the Heroic Vision. So beyond just doing the quest chain, some of you may have already done these with no mass or non-full clears. You do have to do that in order to level up the first thing you're going to need, which is going to be your, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that name, but basically your Black Dragonflight Cloak. And the main thing you need in order to do this is going to be the second thing you see here, which is reduces sanity loss within the visions of N'Zoth by 80%. When you're in the Horrific Visions, there is a natural sanity loss that comes from each affected area. Having an 80% reduction is really the only way this becomes doable for most people, unless you're a really hardcore gamer and you have a lot of consumables. So very important, would recommend doing all your visions at whatever the easiest difficulty it is in order to receive the quest item to get this to rank 15. Now the next thing you're going to need to make your life easy is going to be your consumables, Greater Flask of Endless Fathoms, the Ghastly Goulash, and the Kebabs. The big ones here are going to be the Ghastly Goulash, which is going to restore health per second while in the Vision of N'Zoth, and the Kebab, which will give you 100 sanity as long as you are sitting down and eating for at least 15 seconds. These two things make this dramatically easier for most people and can make it possible even without a rank 15 cloak. The next thing, and it's kind of the obvious one, the elephant in the room, you're going to have quite good gear. This is not going to be doable on most classes at anything below about a 455, and even at a 455 it's going to be quite troublesome for most classes to do. I'd recommend a minimum of 460 before you attempt this yourself, as well as having the proper Titan research. So there's two different trees you can go down. The left-hand side is going to be for the solo player. The right-hand side is going to be for group players, but it can add a little bit of security to the solo player. The couple big ones you're going to need are going to be Elite Extermination. Restores 200 sanity upon defeating an enemy. That's very important because that's how you're going to keep your sanity up throughout the instance by timing your elite kills with your cooldowns. Everything else you can see down here just increases damage, and or Gift of the Titans is a proc that reduces sanity loss and increases haste and speed. So it's like a overpowered bloodlust for a couple seconds. Once you start moving into this tree over here, it's just going to get easier. Expansive Mind increases the sanity for all party members by 150. That does include yourself, so you will get this even if you're doing it by yourself. But definitely Elite Extermination is going to be a mandatory, as well as Experimental Destabilization. That's a mouthful right there, because it's going to increase your damage done. So once you're done with all those things, if you feel confident, we can get right into it. And starting the Heroic Vision, there's going to be a couple things you want to do. So you're going to click all your mass, and you'll know that you've clicked it because the red aura debuff, or the red aura around the sitting chairs, will disappear as you click it. Once you're done with that, you're going to want to pop any consumables that you have on the right hand side of your screen. You're going to see what I use, which is the Greater Flask of Endless Fathoms, the Goulash, which gives you 2% of your maximum health every couple seconds while in a Vision of Heroic N'Zoth, and then the little food you see on the right hand side next to that is the Kebab, which restores 100 sanity after 15 seconds of eating it. Those are really situational, but they can help you in the instance. As you're going to see, I use them a couple times just to prolong myself not having to use an orb. Once you first get in here, you're actually going to do the right side first, but what we do is we clear a few little packs here, because in the hut over to the left there is a gentleman who was killed by taking the wrong kind of potion. And now what these potions do is they give you different buffs and or effects depending on which color of the potion you eat or drink. So we're going to see which potion killed him, and we're not going to drink that one throughout the instance. It is always the potion closest to his body. In this case, it is the purple potion. Now typically you're going to want to find out which potion color restores sanity as they change each heroic vision. But what I'll usually do is I will just drink all the potions except for the bad one, which is the purple one, which killed him, which takes away 100 sanity. And the reason I do that is because they give beneficial buffs, and the more of them you drink, the longer the duration on them is increased, so you don't have to worry about them running out, because when they run out they do have anywhere from 3 to 5 second little negative side effects, which are typically disorients or stuns or fears or whatever. But if you just take them as you find them throughout the instance, you'll end up stacking them to like 30 minutes or more, so it's not a big deal. Just take them as you see them, and then when you figure out which color is the one that's going to give you sanity back, just take that situationally, meaning if you've got an elite boss coming up and your sanity bar is almost full, probably don't waste the potion, just keep note of where it was at. This is the first little mini boss of the instance. He doesn't do anything too rough. I usually will pop all my cooldowns on him just because it's going to be quite a while before I get to the second boss of the instance. You'll see some people that will use their cooldowns to pull large trash packs. I don't typically do that. Slow and steady wins the race in the case for me. I prefer to just be a smooth, easy run than trying to min-max it, because you don't gain anything extra the faster you do it. You'll see me specifically target this Dominator. It's one of the more dangerous mobs in the instance. You're supposed to kill them first, because what they can do is put a debuff on you that stuns you for a long time, and when you're on a 5 mask, if your feet are placed incorrectly or you have low health, it's going to spawn sanity things. You can see the little pools in the trail I'm leaving behind me. Those will take away about 6 sanity a second if you're standing in them for an extended period of time. So getting stunned by a Dominator in one of those is really unfortunate. Now what you see running at me there with the red name tag, that is a vision that's caused by my own corruption. That is not something that you'll see inside the instance. If it's in a vision shade, it'll move much slower and it will not have a red name tag. You don't want to get hit by those because they will AoE fear you and lock you in place for a few seconds. Very easy to avoid though, they move at a creeping crawling speed. We just got the black liquid, which is going to restore 100 sanity to us. Wasn't really needed right there, as I still had over 75% sanity, but hey, why not? This is considered a little bit of a mini boss, but he doesn't do anything particularly dangerous. Don't waste any cooldowns on him, just let your NPC tank him and kill him accordingly. Now the hyper jump you're seeing me do every few seconds is one of the corruptions for this area. What it does is it sets your character on fire, and this damage doesn't actually do any damage. But after a certain amount of time, once the fire is ramped up, any kind of movement will cause your character to directionally lunge forward. It's actually one of the more annoying mechanics, but it's not particularly dangerous, except for when you're in one of the last areas and there's a higher density of mobs that kind of combo their abilities together. But for this area, it's just an annoyance. Deal with it. It's not a big deal. Now this boss will spawn here in just a few seconds and become attackable. You're going to want to burn all your cooldowns on him. He does have some very heavy sanity hitting abilities. You're not typically going to die to him, but you can lose a dramatic amount of sanity to him. The first one being what he's about to do here, which is called the Void Torrent. Now we killed him extremely fast. One of his other abilities is he'll create a shell around him, which is a little bit of a DPS check. He won't take any damage until you do enough damage to break the shell and interrupt his cast. It's not a huge deal if you can't interrupt it. It's not a one-shot wipe mechanic, but if it comes up, you are going to want to try and DPS through that as fast as possible. You're going to find another mini-boss here. This boss doesn't do anything particularly dangerous. Most of the abilities are AoE, and they are up close, so as soon as you see him casting, you just get a little bit of range from the mob. Not a big deal. Don't stand in any pools you may find on the ground. It should also be noted you shouldn't use any cooldowns. It's a very easy mini-boss. These scarabs aren't particularly dangerous. In fact, they have very low health. Once they reach a certain threshold, though, they They do AoE explode on the ground after a few seconds of casting. Again, not particularly dangerous. It's most of the time not even worth DPSing them all the way down because they will die upon their explosion. Just move out of it. The Vemen Weavers are going to be AoE casters with a large health pool. They do a AoE on the ground as well as a long-range cast. Again, nothing to worry about, just kill them as normal. As you walk over corpses in this part of the instance, you're going to notice bugs spawn. I just circled them right there. The little bugs that are going to spawn, again, are the same scarabs that explode at a certain health threshold. Not too much to worry about, just continue as normal. Would recommend, if you're going to pull any type of group mobs or a mini-boss, that you make sure there's no corpses on the ground, and you should pre-clear those before pulling the boss. Now, the affects for this area, because this is the next zone you're going to enter, which is Rexxar's zone, the madness effect in here is going to be Leaden Foot, meaning that while in combat, you're going to get a stacking debuff that reduces your movement speed. This used to be extremely detrimental and one of the harder affixes to counter, especially for melee classes. In a recent patch, though, they have nerfed Leaden Foot to where it will never actually slow you more than 50% of your movement speed, which in this particular heroic vision, meaning Orgrimmar, and in this zone, nothing in here is really going to do anything dangerous enough where you have to worry about the Leaden Foot. You know, play accordingly. You'll notice that I just saw a black liquid there, and I'm popping my cooldowns on this mini-boss, because if you have done your Titan research, and your cloak is high enough level that you are actually doing a 5-mask run, the bosses are going to restore 200 sanity when you kill them. So I did not want to collect my black vial and be overcapped on my sanity. It would be a waste. So I'll remember it's there and use it later. This particular pack is relatively dangerous. Typically, you would actually have cooldowns maybe for this one as a mage or another stealth class and stealth past that mini boss. What these ads do is they actually stun you, and they do quite a bit of damage through a stacking dot debuff, while the big one there will actually do a headbutt that'll knock you back. So one thing I do here is I try to kite away as fast as possible, because in that one stun rotation with the stacking dot debuff, they've taken me down as low as 27% health, so they're really dangerous. Just be careful. Now, I'm going to waste a little bit of time here because Rexxar is arguably one of the most dangerous mobs in the instance. And that's because he has ads that he summons throughout the fight called the Quill Bores that absolutely drain your sanity at a crazy level. They also stun you and just do really big damage pools to your health. So I am going to actually stall until my cooldowns are back up. Once my cooldowns are back up, I'll engage. Rexxar is one of two bosses where even if you don't have some version of Bloodlust, Heroism, or Time Warp, you should be buying your Drums of Battle and using them on Rexxar. Rexxar just does an insane amount of damage to both sanity and your overall health bar, so he needs to be killed as fast as possible. Using it here, your Drums of War, Bloodlust, Heroism, or Time Warp should be back up before you engage Thrall at the end of the instance. One thing I like to do when I'm waiting for cooldowns is I'll clear some extra packs in the instance and gather the chests. You can see I'm clearing a pack here because there's a chest in the corner. These are for corrupted mementos, which obviously are, upgrading your Titan research and other, situational what-have-nots. Now, even though my cooldowns are up, I'm actually going to wait for my Meteor as a mage, because with my Combustion procced, it is going to hit hard, and with my Ignite ticks following it, it's going to do roughly 200,000 to 300,000 damage, and I'm going to want to have that up. I'm going to use a Sanity Orb here and stand in the Sanity Orb. That way, as I'm losing Sanity, the Orb is going to give it back to me for a good portion of this fight. And you're going to want to burn Rexxar. If you have any type of immobilizing or AoE stuns, use them on the Quill Bores, but you just need to kill him very fast. You can see I had 3 of them procced. If that fight would have gone on for even 15 more seconds, I probably would have died and lost all my sanity, because their quills just really do take your sanity down. You're going to teleport back to the beginning, save yourself a little bit of time, and start proceeding to the next areas. Usually what I'll do, since my cooldowns are down, there's 2 of the stronger mobs in the instance guarding Thrall's room. I usually take them out here. I will actually sheep one of these because they both do 2 abilities, an AoE Fear and a hard-hitting close range stun that can be avoided if you're ranging or running behind them. Here's the first one. I'm actually going to Dragon's Breath it. It's called Break Spirit. And then this is the horrifying AoE. It's going to stun you. He charges. I do get hit by this Break Spirit, and you can see even through my Fire Shield, which absorbs roughly 129,000 damage, it still did about 10% of my health bar, so if I didn't have my Fire Shield up, it would have hurt quite badly. Now, sometimes in this building to the left, you'll see an NPC in there. I actually don't kill him this instance. I wasn't paying enough attention, but killing the Blacksmith will give your character a damage buff for the remainder of the instance, so it's something you should look out for, and I didn't at the beginning. So we're actually entering my least 2 favorite areas. They are arguably, the 2 easier areas to do, but I don't like the affixes or the mechanics for this area. The fire jump that we get afflicted with is absolutely annoying. It drives me up the wall. And then in the Valley of Spirits to the right, there's just a lot of bosses, so you can't really plan your cooldowns because you're going to kill so many of these elite bosses. Your cooldowns are not typically going to be up. Now this boss I'm doing here is actually pretty easy. I probably didn't need to use my cooldowns, but they're actually going to be up before the next engagement of an elite. But after you engage the next elite, this zone has 3 of them you're going to contend with, 2 of which you have to have cooldowns up in order to burn very fast. The other one is not a big deal. He's just kind of annoying. So we're going to target the Dominator again. We killed this pack just because I will kite a little bit to avoid some damage abilities, and I don't want to run the risk of accidentally pulling them. You can see that I just counterspelled his Touch of the Damned, so I didn't get stunned. So we're going to work on our way clearing all the trash in the instance. In the top left-hand corner up this hill is going to be one of the other elite bosses. Now he's the one that doesn't require too many cooldowns. Very easy, kind of a tank and spank, only has 2 abilities that you just run out of, which is a throw and a leap. And all you have to do is avoid the leap and kill him. So we're going to clear this group, and then I do have my cooldowns up. With my cooldowns up, I am actually going to rotate and go do the harder elite that requires them, and then I will funnel backwards towards this guy. So what we're doing here is we're waiting for that little effect on the ground. It's one of the affixes for this region. It causes an AoE circle on the ground that will fear you if you're standing inside of it. It will spawn consistently even out of combat, so in order to eat the kebab that I just ate, I had to make sure that that wasn't going to be up and interrupted, because the kebab does have a 2-minute cooldown for restoring sanity. Now I get very greedy right here. As a fire mage, I have an insane burst rotation, and I figured I could kill this big baddie before he wiped my sanity bar. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. You can see the red pools he's dropping on the ground do a lot of damage to your sanity, so I end up dying right there. But due to my Titan research, I have an instant res ability I can use 1 time through the instance. So it's not the end of the world, but typically you're not going to want to use that. You're going to want to have that available for the final fight in the instance. And the reason I say that is if you don't kill Thrall, all these other areas don't really matter. So I'm wasting a little bit of time here. I was going to try and get my meteor up, but I just decided to go through with it because this boss is actually really, really easy. There's the throw, and then you just move out of the explosive leap that follows. If you're a caster, don't be casting when he does the Howl of Pain, but again, it's a super easy mechanic to avoid. So I lost approximately 90 sanity during the fight and gained 200, and I didn't use any cooldowns, so you can see it's a very, very easy boss. Don't worry too much about it. Now I am going to waste a little bit of time right here. This next coming boss is arguably, one of the hardest elites in the instance, next to Rexxar. Definitely going to want to have your cooldowns up for him, especially if you're a melee class. Now there is a little orange crystal in the corner that I ignored. Those orange crystals are picked up and traded to the ethereal trader at the end of the instance for corrupted mementos. You typically are going to want to get those because after a certain point you don't really gain much out of these gear wise. You want to get as many mementos as you can in order to further your Titan research. So I'm actually going to go clear this pack over here after I'm done with him because I did see that chest earlier. So we screwed up right there. We tried to blink, but that Defiled Ground is a frontal line ability that does a stun as well as a massive sanity drop. Those orbs he spawns around him also will reduce sanity as well as stun you in place for a fixed number of times. And what you're going to want to do with those is either A, burn him through, have some type of safety immunity like a bubble or an ice block, or simply move far enough away and as they disperse, run in between the gaps. Now we're going to make our way into the final area. One of the reasons I come back up here is there was a vial of black liquid. Just going to go ahead and get that 100 sanity. Now this area, I'll apologize ahead of time, it's by far one of the easiest areas in the instance, but I can't stand the affects of the jumping fire on the ground, so I look like an absolute fool. I fall off the bridge a lot of times because it's just a small area to work with, and that jump is really hard to navigate. Now in this instance, you're going to want to kill the Tormentors first. The Tormentors are going to use an AoE ability called Mental Assault, which on its own is not dangerous even the slightest, but coupled with the Void Lords, they will put a Void buffet on you that dramatically increases damage, and if you have a Mental Assault going with stacks of the Void buffet on you, you will die very, very quickly. So I kill the Tormentors first every single time because the Void buffet without the Tormentors isn't dangerous. Now we're eating a K-Bob because we want to have enough sanity that when we kill the Oblivion Elemental up there in the back, that we don't have to use an orb and we can kind of just wait out till the end. Now we're doing really good. We still have 2 orbs, so theoretically we wouldn't have to waste a K-Bob and we could just use an orb. But I always try to err on the side of caution. If I have 2 orbs at the end, not a big deal. Now you're going to want to make sure you pop your cooldowns for this boss. He does do a few annoying abilities, including these AoE waves on the ground, as well as Hopelessness, which is also going to be done by the last boss, Thrall. It stuns you and hits for a 60 insanity loss on the waves, and the Hopelessness makes it so you are unable to act or cast until you go and find your soul, which has been spouted from your body. Now I have a little bit of downtime because I have to wait for my cooldowns to come back up for Thrall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for chests and any potions just to make sure those don't run out mid-fight. Now, unlike Rexxar, the Void Boars are already spawned in this fight, so if you do not have a heavy cleave AoE class, those need to be targeted down first. Meaning if you really only have a single target way of killing things at a great rate, you need to target the Void Boars immediately. Those need to die before Thrall. Once those are dead, this fight becomes a cakewalk. So just like we did in Rexxar, we're going to stand in our Sanity Orb, do as much damage as we can to Thrall using our cooldowns. As a Fire Mage, my natural single target rotation will kill the boars on their own. And then once the boars are dead, he does an AoE cast in the middle. This is the Void Shield from the first boss we talked about. It's a DPS race. I couldn't beat it. Not a big deal. Hopelessness. I'm going to have to grab my soul. Surging Darkness is going to be putting a Void Portal in the middle. And once the middle is done, it's going to move to the outer edge. Just move out of that. And he does a close range ability called Surging Darkness that is similar to, Defiled Ground, which is similar to the line ability that will stun you from the boss in the Valley of Spirits. But overall, very easy fight. Once the boars are dead, you could theoretically do this fight without losing any sanity. Usually the piece of gear you'd get would be 470. I've obviously done this once this week, so the max I can get now is 465. Not a big deal because, again, you're not really doing this for gear, you're doing it for the echoes and the mementos. But I hope you guys enjoy. Peace.